So I've got Carolyn Martin here of Creation Wines out there in the beautiful S02 Valley, one of my favorite areas in the Cape, to be honest. I remember the first time I was there as well, to your farm, beautiful place. Thanks for making the time. I know you guys are busy with harvest already, aren't you?
Well,
yes?
we're just starting. Actually, one of the coolest areas. So
yes.
That means that we harvest later than everyone else.
Okay,
yeah.
So you've just started now?
Yeah.
Oh, great. So, but thanks for then making the time.
Fantastic.
Great to see you again. So I told you about the dish that we were making. Tell us about the wines that you chose.
Okay, well, I mentioned that S02 is one of the coolest winemaking areas in South Africa, and that means that we have great food wines. The reason being is because you get this beautiful natural fruit coming, from the area because of the cooling Atlantic Ocean breezes and very long, slow ripening. So I've chosen a quite aromatic wine, the Viognier.
Great.
Very fragrant, beautiful, like white peaches and cream.
Perfect,
and I heard that you were cooking something with peaches today, and I thought it would be really fantastic to have a dish with some peaches and spice.
Great.
And what is interesting about the Viognier is, although it's so delicate and fragrant, it's a cultivar generally from the northern Rhone, but it grows extremely well at Creation. We have similar climatic conditions, a little bit cooler, maybe a little bit more temperate. It's not so, the temperatures don't vary so much. So I think this wine is going to go perfectly with the spicy dish. Can I offer you some?
Yes, please.
So see if you pick up those flavors on the nose.
So, Karen, talk me through Viognier. I mean, and specifically the S02 Valley. Were your farm the first farm to actually plant it there, or?
Yes. The whole idea of Creation is, obviously we started in 2002, and then there wasn't any Viognier, there was no Grenache planted in the area, there was no Semillon. So part of my remit was to find a name that would be appropriately innovative, since we've planted all of these amazing cultivars, which are not necessarily all very well known to South Africans, but truly wonderful wines for food.
Yes.
So you can get those aromatics coming through.
It's quite upfront, isn't it?
Yes, yes. And the Viognier, it's a wine that is well known in Europe. As I said, it comes from the northern Rhone. What we love about Viognier is we prefer not to put wood in it, because we don't like it to go into barrels, because we feel that it's much better if you get those lovely fragrant characteristics, and we feel that the wood kind of pulls it apart in a way, and it's just too much. So what happens when you have this wine and you have this food is that you kind of have this fantastic taste explosion. It almost elevates the fruit notes in the wine, so you can have something quite spicy with it. So it's really great with Malay-style foods, with Thai foods, with Indian-style curries, and therefore it goes with our fantastic Rainbow Nation cuisine.
That's great, because I mean, there isn't a lot of wines that you can really have with those dishes. I mean, there's a limited amount of wines that can stand up to those spices, and especially, I mean, South Africans love their food quite bold in terms of the flavors.
Yes.
So it's great.
And I think there's a bright future for Viognier.
And it's been used before, primarily, especially in South Africa, as a blend.
Yes, but we don't really need to do that. Also in the Rhone, what happens is they use the Viognier to improve the texture and the bouquet, and also the sugar levels of the Rhone-style blends. That's the red blends, so Syrah, Mourvèdre, Grenache, and sometimes they add Viognier. But in South Africa, it ripens so beautifully, the red cultivars, by themselves, that you don't really need to add the Viognier as an element. We just think the Viognier in all its glory, its purity, its freshness is delicious by itself, and a great wine to pair.
I love it. I love how it's not just about the fact that it can stand up to the spices. It's within all of that, it's still, there's notes in the wine that just sort of like becomes more pronounced in a way.
Yes.
And that's when it comes to food and wine pairing, I mean, it should really benefit both, shouldn't it? And that's what's happening.
Absolutely, yeah. You don't want the food to overtake the wine, you don't want the wine to overtake the food. And, you know, foods that ideally pair, wines that ideally pair with foods are wines which have fantastic natural acidity, so really gorgeous freshness. You'll notice how this cools the palate. And also it cleanses the mouth between mouthfuls of food. And then the other thing is that you always want judicious use of oak in red wines, like the Syrah Grenache, and you want them to have lovely, luscious tannin structures. And when you have that, then you have a wine which is what we call a sly chameleon wine, and it can really go with anything because it sort of changes colour depending on the food that you're pairing it with. And it's a great pairing wine. But what I'd like to do now is show you the Syrah Grenache and show you a red wine if you would like to see how
really
versatile that is.
Thanks for bringing a white and a red wine. I think, you know, we've been talking a lot about perceptions out there, especially when it comes to certain wines that can only go with certain dishes. So it's great to, and I'm looking forward to taste it together.
Good. Well, this is also, both of these are what we would call Rhone-style cultivars. They both come from that area, or that's where, that's the area where they're well known from in Europe. And as I said, the climate at creation is similar to the Northern Rhone, so you've got lovely elements here. This is a 80-20 blend. It's what I call my yin and yang wine. It just has
80-20, so
80 Syrah, 20 Grenache, and the Syrah for me is like maraschino cherries, lovely hints of clove, anise, and white pepper. So it doesn't have. It's not as opulent as a Syrah that would be made in a much warmer climate, but it has beautiful notes of fruit, which is, as I said, something special that you want for wines that particularly go well with food, and a lovely tannin structure. And then you've got the Grenache, and the Grenache is like the feminine part of it for me. It's like the dark rose petals, pomegranates, cranberries, lovely hints of spice, little touches of Turkish delight. So you can imagine how beautifully it could go with a dish like this. But it will be interesting to see if it does. I need to check it out. But normally it goes with quite spicy food, and I would imagine that the fruit elements would be beautiful with the fruit elements in the wine, and then the spice and the tannin structures will work quite well together with this wine.
You know, I've tasted at a few farms where either Grenache as a single variety, really great. I know I've tasted this wine on the farm recently, and it was just beautiful. You know, just as a drinking wine as well. I mean, to be honest with you, when I buy wine, I focus on whether I'd be able to just sit there and have a good glass of this, you know, without even enjoying a meal with it. And then maybe that's something that comes afterwards. But really it was, and I'm looking forward to tasting it with this dish now.
So, yeah, it'd be interesting to have the feedback. I also have maybe a little bit and just see what this, I'm interested in the peaches and the spice here.
Listen, let's talk a little bit more about the farm. I mean, you Afrikaanse meisie here from Stellenbosch.
Yes.
And now you're out there in the E08 Valley in Hermanus.
Yeah.
Who's the winemaker? I assume you're the owners of the farm?
Yes. So I grew up, I was born in Hartenburg, grew up on Blaarklippen, and then my parents started Glencarlo, and they had once this fantastic stagiaire working there. His name was Jean-Claude Martin, and my mom phoned me and said, "This is a guy that you have to meet. Your father says it's the best apprentice that he's ever had working for him." And I said, "Mum, I'm living in London, and I told you I'll never marry a winemaker, you know. It's dusty roads, you have the power going off, and when you're in the middle of harvest, and it's 24/7. You're working with nature, so you have to be very humble towards nature, and it's quite a tough life. It seems so glamorous, but actually it's all about working with nature."
Yeah.
And then by chance I met him 4 years later, and I had no clue that it was the same guy. I was doing a global rebranding for Glencarlo, and yeah, a year later we were married, and then my mom said, "By the way, that's the guy." So it's a kind of a love story, and we were introduced through my parents. And I think it's so fantastic because we do have the same absolute passion for wine. You know, I've grown up with it, and I've had wonderful clients that I worked for in the UK as well, like Lauren Perrier, so I've tasted wines from all over the world, and we have the same passion for food, and it's a good life to have, actually. It's a very healthy life in a way.
Carolyn, I don't really want to make a choice. I'm going to go with the Syrah Grenache. Really, I love the Viognier with it as well. And maybe if it's a lunch, if I'm enjoying this over lunchtime, I'll have the Viognier. If it's a dinner, then I'll probably go for the Syrah Grenache. So I can't actually make up my mind. But I just want to say thank you
It's a great pleasure.
for making the time.
Yes.
Like I said, I love your passion, and in quite a short space of time, you guys have done a fantastic job. I love going out there and spending time in your tasting room, and I think you're going to see a lot more of me.
Great. Come to Hermanus, come to the Himmel en Aarde.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I'll watch, I'll call up and see what new things are happening, and hopefully I can attend it. So, but thank you very much. I really appreciate you making the time to come and see us. Thank you very much.
Great pleasure.
Cheers.
Santé. Remember, keep it nice and spicy, but make sure the wine's cooled, huh? Not too hot. The South Africans always drink it too hot.
Too hot.
Yes.